think having integrity and having character and being honest as something that has continued to filter into my life here at home. I'm just trying to be the best mom that I can be, loving her as much as I can, and hopefully teach her some of the lessons that I learned throughout my career.
Today's episode is powered by McGoldrick and Paul Electric, your trusted local electricians serving South Jersey and beyond. Whether it's upgrading your home lighting, handling tricky wiring, or keeping your family safe with reliable electric work, their expert team gets the job done right the first time. With decades of experience and a reputation built on honesty, quality, and care, McGoldrick and Paul Electric is who I'd call for my own home. Visit McGoldrickandPaulElectric.com to schedule your service today. Welcome back to the Running Wine Mom podcast. I'm your host, Samantha Cieslinski, aka the Running Wine Mom. Today's guest is someone who truly needs no introduction, unless you've been living under a goalpost. Carli Lloyd is a two-time FIFA World Player of the Year, a World Cup champion, Olympic gold medalist, and now a mom. Her drive on the field was legendary, but it's her heart, honesty, and evolution off the field that we're diving into today. From scoring hat tricks on the world's biggest stages to navigating IVF and new motherhood, Carli opens up about identity shifts, quiet strength, and what it means to create a legacy that lasts beyond the scoreboard. So without further ado, let's welcome Carli. Welcome, Carli.
Hey, how are you? Good to chat.
Good. Thanks for coming on today. So before we get into you, we start each episode with our wine, and win of the week segment. This is where I share our favorite bottle of wine or drink, vent about something that's been bothering us, and celebrate our recent victories. So grab a glass, take a deep breath, and let's get started. So Carli, what is your drinking wine of the week?
Ooh, drinking wine. You know what? Post-pregnancy, I've been into beer, which is like
Okay.
so weird. No, I like any type of a Pinot Noir or whatnot. I mean, I'm not too picky with my wines. How about you?
I love it. Well, right now going into the hot season, which now it's finally hot today. I feel like I've still been drinking red wine up until like yesterday, but now I'm back into the Pinot Grigio, I guess.
Yes. Yeah. Need a refreshing one.
Yeah. So what is your UHINE, your complaint of the week?
You know, I mean, I'm not just saying this, but I try not to complain too much, right? There's always like worse things that could be going on in your life. But I must say, our daughter's 8 months. So she was just 8 months a few days ago. We've done a lot of travel in from April on. We've been to Mexico, we've been to Hawaii, Dallas, all different spots. So she's, airplane, car, crib, stroller, all these things, right? So the sleep schedule has been, it's been a little rough. I was just competing down in North Carolina recently, a week ago. So I had her, my dad was there helping me. And so she was in a crib in my room, but she was up every 2 hours. So here I am trying to compete, waking up every 2 hours. So my husband had a week, to himself. So he's like, when you get home, I'll take over. I actually came home the same day I came home. I had to go to New York for the night. So I got like a full night's rest. But from that point on, so pretty much like the last week and a half, he's for the first week, he was kind of taking the nights a bit to just help me out, which is the first time because I've been nursing. I've been doing it all, which is like totally great and fine for me. But she didn't wake up once when
Of course, right?
not one time to feed. I think there was maybe one or two nights. And I'm like, this little girl. Yeah. So she's been doing some long stretches, which is really nice. And then my husband's out of town again. And so last night she woke up at 1:45 and I'm like,
It's like they know you're there.
it's insane. So I wouldn't say wine of the week, but I'm just like, this is just hilarious. Like she
Yeah.
sleeps for him tonight. And yeah, so
She's already, she knows she loves you. Not more, but she wants to just spend more time with you. That's how I look at it. So what's your win of the week?
Win of the week. I mean, I would say on the flip side of that, I've been getting some full night stretches. She's been kind of, going down 7:30, 8-ish until about 5:30. So that's like a nice long stretch. I haven't
Wow.
done in quite some time. So yeah. And I would say, the hot weather, I'm kind of enjoying it being poolside. So
Finally.
yeah.
Well, that's great. So I always like to ask my guests, what's one significant challenge you've navigated shaping your journey to where you are today?
Gosh, I don't think there's just one specific. I mean, I think it just everything throughout my career, and not just my career, even growing up, getting cut from some teams and maybe, getting overlooked or people not believing in me, going to Rutgers University, which was a good school academically, soccer wise. It was kind of we were just kind of trying to put the school on the map. So I would say all of that. I mean, I think injuries, being benched at certain moments, kind of losing my starting job out on the field towards the later part of my career. I think it's impossible to just pick one because I think all of those things just help shape me into the person and the player that I was because I just had to learn so much about me and persevere through different challenging situations. So I just think, yeah, I think it's all of it, right? It's the good, the bad, happy, the sad,
Yeah.
because it's truly without those struggles and those moments, I wouldn't be here for right now talking about all of the things.
Yeah, and I think, for people listening or watching, they see you as such a success with everything you did. So you sharing all of those, even you had failures. So, it's normal to have them and pushing through is so important.
Yes.
So we know you are a soccer guru, but now that you are retired, how do you stay active?
Well, that's actually an interesting thing. So I remember having conversations with some of the younger players on the team towards the end of my career, and they were like, everybody kind of knew me as this crazy, psychotic, dedicated player that, would, jog on game days and, my training was pretty intense. And, um, I probably was a bit of the extreme as far as my preparation. But again, I have no regrets in that department. So they would ask me, what are you going to do when you're done playing? And I'm like, oh, I'm going to continue to work out and it's going to be great. And I'm addicted to working out. Well, when I retired, mentally and physically, I was just absolutely done. It was, I had kept my foot on the pedal from start to finish. And so that was very proud to know that I had really nothing left in my tank. I was actually in my reserves at that moment. And so I don't think I gave myself enough time afterwards to just get away from it, not work out, not worry about it, not stress about it. And so I actually, kind of came back to like running after a bit and I was just really not motivated. Like it was really hard to go do it because I suddenly went from having all of these goals of mine and
Hmm.
this something I did for a living to then basically I'm working out to stay healthy and, burn calories. So it was really hard. So I went through kind of the ebbs and flows of that, of struggling with that. And then obviously my journey to getting pregnant, which I'm sure we'll get into,
Hmm.
just IVF of on meds, retrievals. So I was working out, not working out. So it was a couple years of just, yeah, kind of finding myself in the space of, yeah, just not really wanting to do it. And so during pregnancy, I actually didn't run at all. I did Pilates, weekly Pilates, golf. And so when I would go out and golf, we most likely, and then now post pregnancy, I'm, back into running and I was just training for this soccer tournament, the TST tournament that we won a week ago. So that gave me kind of some good motivation, and now I feel like I'm at a point where it's like, okay, I just want to keep this going. I feel good. And I do some strength workouts too. So nothing crazy. I'm not trying to beat my body up. I want to just kind of, remain kind of consistent and healthy.
Which I'm sure is very hard when all you've been doing for your whole life is training for something specifically. I'm sure that's such a mindset shift. And speaking of that, how do you think maintaining your fitness routine kind of contributes to your mental health?
Well, I mean, it was my drug for a number of years. It went from me hating to work out, dreading it actually, to realizing that it was so beneficial for me in my career and I would be getting results and doing great on the field. And so then it became instilled in me and it still is there within me. I feel like there's a mental fortitude for me to be able to push through and get through things. But obviously, I'm not trying to beat my body up. I'm not trying to go run 8 miles. And, I put a lot of miles on my joints and my knees and all of that. So for me, it's a way, obviously now, being a mom, it's a moment for me to kind of get away. I'm sure you
Mhm.
can just kind of
Yes.
thoughts and not have somebody crying or not have anybody really bothering you, right? And so I put my music on and I just do a lot of my thinking. But I think that I'll always be somebody that kind of stays active. I think that that's
Mhm.
just part of me, and I do, and I feel so much better once I do it. But I think for people struggling to work out, I always say that you don't have to go crazy. I think so many people are like, I got to lose 30 pounds in 30 days. It's more about the journey of it, right? It's not like
Mhm.
just trying to lose all that weight up in front, or whether you want to be active, and you struggle with that commitment. It's more or less just kind of adding something to your daily routine. And it could be a 10-minute walk. It could be a 10-minute jog, whatever that is. I think that it's important to just kind of find that. And then it usually takes like a couple months for you to kind of get through that ugly bit of like getting fit. And then I feel like once you kind of get into that routine, you can just, keep going with it. So I
Yeah.
had this conversation with my sister. Obviously she had 3 kids, and it's hard. I can't imagine. You come back from one, and then it's like then you get pregnant again, and I'm sure you as well. Like
Yeah.
it's yeah, it's not easy. And I'm like, you just have to commit to getting through that tough grind of a feeling. But it's for me, I just feel so much better doing it.
Yeah, it's so important. Yeah, and your sister is killing it. I see her like, at the her workout videos all the time and she's doing a great job. And I'm like with 3, I can't imagine. That's awesome. All right, so let's get into parenthood. So you have your husband Brian and you have your daughter Harper. Can you tell everyone a little bit about them and how you got to the point of having your daughter?
Yeah. Well, so I met Brian in high school. So I had heard that he liked me. He was a grade below me. He was a sophomore. I was a junior. We're 2 years apart. So he lived up the street from my aunt. His best friend actually lived next door to my aunt. So I would kind of see him and see his best friend around every now and again. And so I was like, okay, give this guy a shot. He liked to do, sports and all sorts of outdoor activities. And so we started hanging out, and our friend groups kind of just, merged and did stuff together. And then one thing led to another. We started dating. I was driving him to school, which was hilarious. Had my license before him. He always gives me crap about it because I tend to, it was like the outfit choices for me in the morning getting up from school. I always, even if I picked out an outfit before, it was like I would put it on in the morning and then I would not like it, have to change. So I was a little late in the morning. So he would always, give me crap about making him late because I was on the first floor in my homeroom and he had to go up steps, but we laugh about that. But yeah, we've been together since 2000. In 2016, we navigated the high school bit, we navigated the college bit. He went to college down in Florida. I was at Rutgers. For a majority of our relationship, we were apart. I was on the road playing and traveling. So it was, not ideal. It was hard. There's just that balance of, having to be a professional athlete, but then maintaining relationships and kind of trying to be in the present moment with those, which make it difficult. But we navigated it all. I mean, obviously, it wasn't smooth sailing every step of the way, but I think the biggest thing for us is just the love and the foundation that we built. We were growing together. Kind of the same viewpoints on things and just the same goals in life. And yeah, and so when I finished playing in 2021, I mean, we didn't necessarily talk about having kids. I think it was just always kind of the known.
Mhm.
But after I retired, it was more about wanting to kind of live my life and us spend time together, go skiing together, do all the things. Because everybody says, make sure you do all the things prior to kids. And so we did that. I spent the year just, yeah, doing loads of different things and traveling and skiing. And then, it was like, okay, let's give this a go. We talked about, trying to have a baby and kind of went down that journey. And obviously, we ran into, I wouldn't say issues per se, but what you're not told. You're told how not to become pregnant when you're younger.
Right.
You're older, you're not really educated or told, about your cycle and about, all of the things. We're born, every woman is born with a set of eggs. And as you get older, those eggs age. And so the quality of eggs that you have when you're, 35, 40, over 40 obviously diminishes. So it can take someone a long time to get pregnant. And so we just wanted to kind of get ahead of it. Obviously, we could have maybe not gone the IVF route and maybe seen how that would be. But I think we were just like, okay, I'm not getting any younger. Let's kind of start the process. And then, yeah, we had our little miracle Harper. So she's been our greatest joy. She's just amazing and we love every bit of it. It's kind of, in the beginning it was like a pinch me moment of like, I can't believe like this baby is ours. So it's been really special.
It's amazing. I'm always like, you can't tell people who aren't parents what it's like to be a parent. You just have to experience because it is just the craziest and happiest thing that you'll ever, have.
Yeah.
So, what do you think you were least prepared for in parenthood?
At least prepared. I mean, I think everybody gives you the whole, labor and, again, it's nothing that you've ever experienced. You just have to experience it and everybody's labor is different. But holy heck, mine was like 36 hours of labor. Obviously, my first child, my water broke. I went in, 8 hours later. I was not dilated. So it was a very long, drawn out process. And, I was kind of taking the athlete approach of, okay, I have a plan of what I would hope and like for it to go a certain way, but then you're going to have to pivot sometimes. And so
Yeah.
to pivot. Um, I think some of the postpartum things. I mean, the first few nights and still nursing Harper, that was a big thing for me. I wanted to, breastfeed and so the first few nights, like I didn't have any nipple pads. I was
Yeah.
like, I woke up in bed. I mean, through the sheets into the mattress and no, like I feel like I got all the things that I needed, but nobody told me about that.
No, I feel the same way. I was like, "Wait, what? I need this?"
Every night going to bed, I was like, putting them in my nursing bras and yeah, so I would say that and just the night sweats as well.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Didn't last too long for me, but everything else I feel like people gave me a heads up about. I now have all these like baby
I
hairs.
know, I feel like I still have them.
People did tell me about that, but that kind of came out like 5 months later, but I'm like, "Oh my gosh, this is like ridiculous." But yeah, it's just truly miraculous what our bodies do, and, yeah, it's pretty amazing.
That's awesome. And I know Harper is young, but what do you think or hope that your parenting style will be?
Well, I think for starters, Brian and I are on the same page, right? And I think we have good communication, which I think is so important, and we have a understanding of how we want to raise her with good morals and values and respect and manners and all of those different things. And this is our first time doing it, so it's not like we we know how to do it. I think that we just navigate it as best we can in this particular moment of time. But I would say we're both pretty relaxed, but not relaxed as in, just gonna let her have free reign to do anything.
Right.
I really feel like energy is transferred through your
Mhm. Mhm.
I think while you're pregnant, post pregnancy, all of that I think is I'm very kind of in tune with my body and mind and all of that. And so I think, yeah, just kind of more of a patient as much as I can, relaxed, just kind of taking it one step at a time, like not, not trying to get too high or too low. But I think, we just want to, everyone's always like, is she going to be a soccer player, a golfer? Look, she's going to be whatever she wants to be. We're going to expose
Right.
her to all these different things, but we just want to raise a really good human being.
Hmm.
That is, and however we navigate and do that and get the best out of her, that's sort of how our approach is going to be.
Yeah, that's who knows? Maybe she'll hate soccer and golf. Like you just don't know. But I love that approach for it. That whatever she wants to do and be, that'll be great.
Yeah.
So, what's one piece of advice that you would give to other parents?
Well, I think, I'm turning 43 in July. I think being an older mom is there's pros and cons, obviously, to being a younger mom versus an older mom. I'm kind of doing the math. I'm like, oh gosh, when she's 40, I'm like, oh, but I do have to say that being an older mom, I'm comfortable in my own skin. I don't feel like I get pressured from other people. Everybody has an opinion and everybody parents different, but you have to just embrace how you want to parent. And
Right.
whether your parents are being judgmental or friends or colleagues, I mean, they're free to do that, but at the end of the day, you're the one that goes home with your child. And I think that you have to just parent the way that you want to be parent, not the way the internet tells you or anybody else. I just feel like there's a plethora of information out there. I think too much.
Hmm.
We've gotten less to critical thinking. I think, we've kind of forgotten that sometimes things are just easily just thought about in a critical thinking manner versus being very robotic and having to have somebody tell you to do things. So I think
Hmm.
a lot of people worry about what others are doing and thinking, and maybe they just don't feel confident in parenting a certain way. And then I would imagine as you get older and your kids get older, friends are gonna whether you don't want your child to have a cell phone at the age of 7, and then all of her friends have a cell
Hmm.
phone at the age of 7. I feel like I'm gonna be stern and strict and comfortable in what we want versus kind of bending and feeling pressured because other people are doing that. So I think that would be my biggest thing is just, don't worry about what others are thinking and how they're
Hmm.
parent.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. It is so hard with, and every problem you can just like Google and you're like, what is the answer to this? It's like maybe what the answer you find is not what is going to work for your family. And, doing what, is internally, just think about it for a couple minutes, like you said, with the critical thinking.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's great advice. So once you had Harper, like obviously your identity started to shift beyond being Carly the soccer legend. Like how did that feel to kind of adjust to being known as an athlete, and then now you're a mom?
I think for so long I was hardened, to be this competitor. I mean, I've always been a competitor. I still am. But it just was such a cutthroat environment to be part of for so long, and you do whatever you have to do in order to survive. And I always told people the national team, in my experience, either makes you or breaks you, and
Hmm.
strong survive. And so you're trying to thrive and survive at the same time. I did become this kind of emotionless machine, this ultra competitor that was obsessed, that went to the extreme to be the best that I possibly could be. And so there wasn't a lot of people that I let in. I
Hmm.
was very vulnerable. I really never showed any sign of weakness. And, having then been out of it for almost 4 years now and then going through the IVF cycle, journey and being open and honest about that. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to say that I've become this totally different person. I think that who I am was always kind of there in the earlier
Yeah.
stages of my life, and then, had to kind of be a certain way throughout my career. But I would say that I'm a lot more vulnerable now, a bit of a softie. I don't have the pressure of having to be at my best on the soccer field anymore. In fact, like I don't put any pressure on myself. I mean, I'm doing TV stuff with Fox Sports. I'm a mom. a wife, a friend, all of these different a sibling, all of these different things. And I just feel like yeah, I mean, if it's like, if I mess up on TV, I mess up on TV. It's not the end of the world. And so I think that, yeah, it's just been the greatest thing being a mom. Like you said, no, everybody says it's the most amazing thing, but you don't know that until you have a child. And it really is. I mean, and I think, every day is a gift. It's a blessing to be here. And the older you get, the more you realize that life is so precious.
Hmm.
And so I think that, yeah, my vulnerability and softness is maybe shining through a lot more than I'll have seen on TV.
Yeah, I think that I feel the same exact way. As soon as I became a mom, I was like so much more empathetic towards everything in life. Like I was so, like you said, softer. And you're like, I think it's just because I always say, like, when you're a new mom, I feel like you should be able to wear like a patch on your back. Like, I'm a new mom. Please let me to the front of the Starbucks line or something like that, And you're just like, you want to help these people out so much more because it's just kind of crazy. Yeah, so parenting has taught you so much. You also obviously have learned so much from soccer. What are the top 3 life lessons that you think soccer has taught you?
Ooh, I think embracing the journey, and not the destination. I think that that's a really big one. And that was hard for me to navigate in my career. I don't think that and I look back and I don't know that I could have fully embraced
Mhm.
each moment because you're always just turning the page onto the next thing. But I think it really did kind of teach me to enjoy that journey because without the journey, you don't have those wins, those destinations that you get to. And we focus so much on the results and we just miss everything else. We miss living in the present moment. I also learned how to be empowered to do whatever it is I want in life. And, nobody's going to go out there and do it for you. Nobody is going to run sprints on the field by myself. No one's going to push me to be my absolute best. And so anything that you do in life, you have to be the driving force. Sure, you can have a support system and you can have people and all of that, but it's important to have that driving force that you can be in the driver's seat doing that. And then, big one that we, kind of touched on in the beginning is just, failure is so good. I think, and again, this is going to be a big one that Brian and I, want to teach Harper as well is it is okay to fail. In fact, I am going to welcome her to fail
Mhm.
because that's truly where you learn so much about yourself. I always say failure is feedback. If you're protecting your child or if you're protecting yourself from never failing and never trying to persevere through a situation or get back up again and push yourself, you're never going to grow in life. And so, that is the most important thing to me is being able to do that. And you gain such a mental strength to be able to overcome the challenges. And I felt like every time that I failed and had to get through a struggle, I became better, after the fact. So I think those are, some of them. I mean, there's so many more, but those are some of
Yeah.
the big ones.
Yeah, and I feel so many people, they're afraid to fail, and that's something as I grew up more, I learned, like, failure is just such a great thing. You can figure out a new way to succeed after that, I think I think a lot of parents do not want their kids to fail, so they're protecting them a lot, and it's so important for our kids to really gain resilience, so I love that you guys have that perspective.
Yes.
So so the end of your soccer career came in 2021. It was an amazing career. How did you decide that you were going to retire then? And did you miss the thrill or were you more excited about downtime with family?
I mean, throughout my career, I mean, with the national team, essentially, we consider it cycles. So every cycle, every 4 years, World Cup, every 4 years is Olympics, and it was always a World Cup, and then the next year after a World Cup was the Olympics. And so I knew that I always wanted to kind of go through 4 cycles because 4 cycles would bring me to my late 30s. In soccer, that is a bit of a late time to
Mhm.
retire. I don't wanna say, you're old at that point, but for a soccer considered old. So, once the 2020 Olympics rolled around, and then, COVID pushed it to 2021, I knew that that was going to be it for me. You sacrifice and give up so much, any semblance of a normal life. Every time I went out to dinner, I'd be thinking the next day about, okay, I have to get up, I have to train, I need my sleep. I don't want to, drink. I don't want to eat terrible. I mean, all of these things consume you. So I just knew that it was going to be the right time. So, yeah, there's young blood coming in. There's windows of when you look at athletes, you're like, oh, they should have retired a few years ago, or, why are they still playing? So I was able to dictate when I wanted to leave. It was no injury. It wasn't because I was old and washed up. I left and exited at like a perfect moment. And I'm very
Mhm.
grateful for that moment. So I knew that I was pretty much done. And I wanted to spend time with Brian, spend time with my family and friends. My family and I, we rekindled our relationship in 2020, and it's just been just so special. And then obviously wanting to start a family too. So I was ready. I was really ready to, yeah, to live life, which sounds pretty crazy.
No. Yeah, it is, 'cause as you're saying, like, I feel like you and Brian really, like, had to restart dating after your career where it's like you had that, like, year of dating and then you decided to have kids is kind of how it happened.
Huh?
So you've had some unforgettable moments in your career, but what did it mean to be inducted to the National Soccer Hall of Fame with Harper in the crowd witnessing your legacy for kind of the first time?
Yeah, it was. I think that that moment was just such a full circle moment, having my entire family there, my brother, my sister in law, my parents, my sister and brother in law, and all 4 nieces and Harper, and obviously Brian too. It was really special. I mean, it was a very hectic, busy, chaotic day with her. I mean, all of the kids did well. It was a long day for them. They're having to sit there for 4 or 5 hours and just listen to people talking. And when I got up to speak, there was a moment, if you listen to the speech where Harper, kind of yells out. And I just look at that moment and it was just so fitting, right? It was like the struggle of my career, then the struggle to get pregnant, and then I hear her voice during my speech.
Ugh.
And it was so cute. I mean, she has no idea why she was there. I'll explain to her later on when she can fully understand and see photos, but it was just a really special moment. She had just changed me in ways that I never knew were possible. And I think when you struggle to achieve something, you really appreciate it that much more. And so it was one of my greatest moments. I mean, you talk about the World Cup wins and Olympic wins, and people said to me, that's not going to compare to having your own child. And I'm like, but that I'm living it, and I'm like, yeah, it's really my greatest joy. So it was really special. We had a really good weekend, really good time.
That's I have, like, goosebumps. I just love hearing that. That's so cool, and, you got to have this amazing career, and now you get to have this whole new life with her, and that's wonderful that she was able to witness that. So as someone who has pushed herself to the limits, you said, in your career, how do you kind of practice self-compassion, especially as a new mom?
Well, having competed for that $1 million prize that we won
Yes,
7 weeks
congrats.
ago. Thanks. It was so fun. Here I am, a 42-year-old, like playing 6 games in a row. My body is killing me. I've got Harper keeping me up every 2 hours. And I'm playing with, there's a 17-year-old, there's collegiate players on this team. So I'm like double their ages. But the competitor was still in me. Yeah.
I love it.
I was getting fired up. I was, yelling at some of the referees. I've changed. Like, I think the number one question that people have asked me since I've retired is, well, what's fulfilling that competitive drive? And I'm like, nothing really. Like,
Mhm.
yes, I'm competitive. Yes, I want to be the best that I possibly can be on TV. When I have speaking engagements, I want to be the best that I can be, prepared and all of that. But it's not the depths of what I did, even on the golf course. Yes, I want to become a good golfer and all of that. But I guess I'm not driven by competition, which is kind of crazy. I think I'm now driven by just literally enjoying every moment and every day. and just trying to stay in the present moment because, people say after you turn 40, everything changes. It's like
Yeah.
it's a weird feeling of, everybody's getting older around you and people are having issues and health stuff and, all of these things. And so, yeah, I'm just driven by just literally creating as many memories as I can. Um, and just soaking up time with Harper. It's going by fast. Everybody said you blink and they're in school and then graduating and all these things. So when I need to be competitive, I'm competitive, but I like to say that, I just am trying to enjoy every single day.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, that is that's your competitiveness to have the best experience with your daughter, which I
And not
love.
putting pressure on myself as a mom, right? I think
Yeah.
kind of giving myself that grace of, okay, it's going to be hard. Like I'm not going to be sleeping, but just like adapting. I
Yeah.
think that's what my career has kind of taught me. It's just where there's a will, there's a way. You just kind of have to figure it out, right? I think all moms just figure it out, you
I
know.
know.
We laugh at each other because we're like, "Sh we have no photos with our child full time." Like, we're like, we're the backbones of the family, right? I mean, every mom, the space and the mental capacity that is needed in our mind it's crazy,
Crazy.
right? And Brian is an amazing husband, an amazing dad, but they just don't operate like we do.
No, definitely not. Yeah, I'm like, my brain I mean, I feel like our whole brain changes once we have a baby, and you're like, "What? I don't even know how I even thought before I had kids, but what did I do with all my time?" That's what I always say. Like, what did I mean, I know you were competing, but I'm like, I mean, it's crazy how much time
Yep.
even when I was trying to get myself showered for this, I'm like, I have one, like, throwing jewelry at me, and the other's like, they're running everywhere. Okay. So I do want to talk a little bit about soccer. You grew up in Delran. I also grew up in Delran as well, and you started soccer at 5. Can you walk us through maybe one defining childhood soccer memory that shaped you?
I would say just being, a block away from Vermees Field,
Mhm,
using my curb out of front of my house. So between the curb and walking to the field and playing pickup and shooting and, practicing on my own, and then to just like our neighborhood, we had a really
mhm.
awesome block, with a ton of kids, and I would just be always outside playing. So I think that to me is the memory that sticks out of kind of what laid that foundation.
Yeah, and I love that it's, like, all outside. I hope that everything's changing, that our kids will be outside, 'cause a lot of kids are inside a lot, and it's like,
Yes.
if we had cell phones back then, would you be maybe inside on your phone instead of being outside for soccer? You don't know
Mhm.
how a lot of kids' lives are changing.
Yep.
Um, and then you scored hat tricks in the World Cup and Olympic finals. What kind of mental prep or maybe, like, superstitions carried you through those moments?
I wouldn't say I ever had any superstitions. Some
Mhm,
people do, right? They're like, I put my left sock on before my right. I would say mine were routine,
mhm,
and just preparation. Every game day from 2012 on, I would take a 15-minute jog on the
mhm.
morning game day, and everybody would be like, "You're jogging on the game day?" But it just got me kind of my mind ready, my body ready, and that stuck with me towards the end. And yeah, just being so diligent and consistent in everything that I did, all of my preparation. And so those were big things, right? I mean, hydrating, eating well, sleeping well, all those different things. I did those over the entirety of my career. It wasn't just,
Yeah.
we've got a game tomorrow. Let me hydrate and eat well, all that. That it doesn't work like that. So the consistency was a big thing for me.
Yeah, that's the most important thing. It's like never try anything new before race day. So that's what, with running.
Cool.
You've also been candid about the US women's national team's kind of culture later in life. Looking back, what shift do you wish maybe had happened earlier and what advice would you give for current players?
I think, I was having this conversation recently with a, player that played before me. And, it's just interesting the generations. I mean, our generation, it was hard and it was cutthroat and it wasn't always rosy. Players weren't always, nice and welcoming. And while you maybe would want it a little bit easier, a little less that way. It really did shape me into who I am, and it hardened me, and it allowed me to become stronger. I think that right now with Emma Hayes and the women's national team, it's changed a bit where I see Emma kind of bridging both of those cultures together, where it's like, okay, she's going to demand a lot and hold you accountable, or valuing you as a human being and knowing that there is more to soccer than just soccer, or there's more to life than just soccer. So it looks fun to be able to play with her. It does look joyful. I never lived in that space of kind of having a coach that bridged those two things together, but it's working for the group now, and I think that that's amazing. And I think, there's always a reason, a season, and all of those different things that that made us players successful. I mean, we were very successful over the years since the inception of the national team. So would a different approach have worked back then? Would the group have still been successful? I don't know. But I know that it helped harden me and allow me to become mentally tough. So I'm
Yeah.
grateful for that.
Yeah. And so, as a role model, what's your most important message for young female athletes juggling ambition and just everyday life?
I think that there's so many people that don't do inner work on themselves, whether that's you don't want to discover maybe things you're not good at or things that you need to work on. I think it's so easy to outwardly say, this person needs to do this and that person needs to be like that. But really, the self belief and the self love come from internal work on yourself. And I think that it's important. Love yourself, embrace who you are. Everybody is unique in their own ways. Just try to be the best version of yourself every day. Don't compare yourself to somebody else. I always try to just compare myself to my previous performances in my
Hmm.
I was yes, I was competing with other players, but I wasn't telling myself that I was competing with this person next to me or
Hmm.
that person, over there. And so I think that's a really important is just dig deep and just be vulnerable about things that you need to work on and just work on yourself because if you're internally happy, then outwardly your
Hmm.
whole I'm not saying you're going to be happy all the time, but I'm just saying your whole world and your whole being will be better for it. But you look at some people that are just so unhappy internally that it just affects everything about their life.
Hmm.
So I think it's important to work on yourself.
Yeah. Inner work is so underrated. I feel like you're not really like taught to do that. You go through school and then you just go through life. And if you don't work on yourself, then you can't better yourself if you're always stuck kind of in the past. And so I love that advice. So you also have partnered with huge brands. Like how do you balance your authenticity and now motherhood with choosing partnerships?
Well, I think that was interesting because I didn't have many sponsors when I first started on the national team. It was also kind of a different time as well. I mean, social media wasn't prevalent. So for the first, I want to say, 10 years of my career, yes, I, signed on with Nike. I've been with Nike still to this day. But aside from that, it was very small things. And then I scored a hat trick in a World Cup final in 2015. It's still to this day is the most watched final, I believe, men or women ever on Fox Sports.
Watched it.
And so it was kind of the perfect moment, obviously, for myself, for the team. And so a lot of things came my way. I started getting my agent starting getting calls about a ton of different things. And really, I mean, we sifted through a lot of things and it was like, okay, what makes sense? I want to be the best role model that I can be. What aligns with my brand, what doesn't? And I was very specific and very intentional about companies and people that I would partner with. It had to kind of align with my values of being authentic. And I was always somebody that I didn't want to have to showcase my looks or my body in order to get more marketing deals. So I turned down ESPN The Body Issue. I turned down Dancing with the Stars. I know. Not that Dancing with the Stars was anything, but I was just like, "That's just me," and I think terrible, but more power to people that can do that. But, yeah, I just tried to kinda be intentional with my brand and just because it's a reflection of me, so
Mhm.
and that is kind of I feel like that's a long game approach, whereas if you just kind of sell yourself short for these quick one-offs, I mean, it doesn't have a lasting, impression, so that's how
Yeah.
I just tried to do it.
That's great advice. So, on game days, you had your teammates and your support staff. Now, as a mom, who makes up your village at home?
Well, thankfully, both Brian and I, very flexible. We're home and that, I'm on the road sometimes and whatnot. So that makes it amazing, to just be here with her. But when we need, which we have, my parents, which they're actually here now, looking after Harper, Brian's out of town, my mother-in-law, sister-in-law, Brian's sister, and yeah, I mean, occasionally my sister here and there. Obviously, she's busy with her three. But yeah, we've actually left Harper with my parents for a couple nights when she was like 2 months old. I was like really nervous in the sense of obviously they're waking up a lot at night, right?
Right.
And but it was great. I think that they get to spend so much time and get to kind of know her more than just babysitting here and there. So we've left her a couple times, and I also think it's important to leave her with people
Hmm.
because I want again her to adapt. We've traveled a lot with her, but yeah, I mean, it's you need help, and my parents and mother-in-law, like they're
Yeah.
loving it, so it's been.
That's awesome. So, if you could write a letter to Harper 10 years from now, what would you want her to know about who you were on the field, at home, and in her life?
I mean, she's obviously going to know and hear that I was this famous soccer player, scored important goals and won World Cups and won Olympics, but I would want her to know who I was as a person and how I tried to treat everybody with respect, whether they were a CEO of a company or whether they're, picking up balls and cones at our training session. I just tried to always, treat everybody how I would want to be treated and still do. But I also worked hard at my craft and I was not the next best thing. I don't even know if I really truly believed that I would go on to accomplish all that I accomplished, but I put my head down. I worked. I didn't make any excuses. I did the uncomfortable things. I worked on things that I wasn't good at, but I did it in the most authentic way possible by staying true to who I was. And I think that's the biggest thing and the biggest thing that I'm most proud of is kind of staying true to who I was from the start all the way to the finish. It didn't always people didn't always understand me or get me, but I think it's important. I think having integrity and having character and being honest as something that has continued to filter into my life here at home. But yeah, I'm just trying to be the best mom that I can be, loving her as much as I can. I think that's the biggest thing is just, loving on her and hopefully teach her some of the lessons that I learned throughout my career.
Well, I think that is probably the best place to end it. Thank you so much for giving us all of this information on your life and just on your journey of being a mother. It was just so wonderful to hear all of it. So, thank you so much for that.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Great chatting.
Yeah. All right. So that's going to bring us to the end of another episode of The Running Wine Mom with a powerhouse, a mom, a mentor, Carli Lloyd, and a living reminder that reinvention isn't just possible, it's essential. She's shown us that the same grit that wins championship can also carry you through fertility treatments, sleepless nights, and the wild, beautiful unknown of motherhood. I'm walking away from this conversation feeling deeply inspired to honor both my hustle and my heart, to remember that success isn't just medals or milestones, it's also quiet moments, hard choices, and showing up for the people we love, especially ourselves. As always, thank you for spending time with me on The Running Wine Mom. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review if you loved it, and share this episode with a mom who needs to hear it. You can follow me on Instagram at The Running Wine Mom _. And Carli, where can the listeners find you?
All my social media channels, Carli Lloyd on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and my website, carlilloyd.com.
Perfect. And I will link all that. Thank you again, Carli, for joining us today.
great chatting.
Yes, it was wonderful. Thank you for joining us today. Remember, you are strong, you are capable, and you are all amazing. Until next time, keep running, keep sipping, and keep embracing the joy of motherhood. Cheers, and I will be back next Tuesday.